Welcome to the SURDS how-to video for submitting a SURDS file. If you're watching this video, hopefully if you watched the login video and then you've watched the file layout and field definitions video to discuss how your file is created and the order of the fields and to put on the file. So hopefully if you haven't watched those, please go back and watch those videos. And to continue with this video, you want to go to the SURDS website, which is surds.colorado.gov. And as stated in other videos, make sure you do HTTPS, so it is the secure website. It should look something like this. The old SURDS website has this blue banner at the top, and we are now migrating everything to the DHE data collection website, which you see a link for here at the bottom, which is the green banner. So you want to click on this image, and the login page should look something like this. With the green banner, it says DHE data collection. So I'm going to log in. And once logged in, you should see a page similar to this, which summarizes the institutions for which you have access and gives you the SURDS menu. The very top here is the DHE data collection menu, which is generic for all of the systems that are contained within the website. And then the SURDS website, this secondary menu, is going to be specific to SURDS. So you can click on SURDS here, or if you want to go down next to the institution and you can click on SURDS, this will take you to the SURDS page for that specific college. So by clicking that link, I get into the SURDS summary page, which shows me all of the file types for which I have access. In this example, we have the enrollment file and all of the terms available for submissions, as well as the degrees granted file, sometimes called the degree file, and all of the terms available for submission. So at this point, we are going to submit a file for the full year 2012 file. And again, building on that previous video about the file layout and field definition, you can have a file that's built as a fixed length file or a comma delimited file. And for this particular video, I'm going to be showing the comma delimited file because it's a little easier to view. So for the full year 2012, click on Submit. And on this page, you can see a summary of the submission criteria. Over here, it says I'm submitting for Development College, which is my institution code 9001. The file type, degrees granted. The term is full year, and the year is 2012. Over here, it summarizes my username, and then this is an important line here, the number of files in progress. During busy times of the year, or specifically close to deadlines, there might be a lot of traffic. And if you come in here and you see that the number of files that are currently in progress, that means that they're being submitted and imported, or being currently validated, or the reports are running right now. So if you come in here and you see that there's 5 or 10 files in progress, it just means that you're going to have possibly a delay in the processing of your file. So just be aware of that as you submit. It doesn't mean you shouldn't submit. It just means that if a file normally takes less than a minute to process completely, it might take 5 minutes, it might take 10 minutes depending on the burden on the server. So just be aware of that. What I'm going to show now is a new feature that if you've used the previous version of SURDS, you would not have had this option, but it's a new feature that is helpful for new files. So you see here we call it submission mode, where you can, by default it's submit and validate, which is the full processing of a file, and we'll do that second. Initially we're going to do a preview data file only, and what this option allows you to do is submit a file where it'll copy the file over, but rather than import it and validate, it will just preview the file. So it'll show you how SURDS is going to interpret the file and show you column by column how the data is broken out. And this is very helpful. And let's just go ahead and do an example here. I'm going to use my comma delimited file that you may have seen in the other video. So I have a sample file for the degrees awarded file for 2012. I'm going to make sure that preview data is selected. I'm going to go ahead and click upload. I get my temporary processing window, and then when it comes back, note that I do get confirmation here at the top that the file preview was selected. The file will not be imported and validated, But what it does do is it copies that file over, and then it shows me how it's going to be processed. So I can see that my file layout is good, where the record type is 3, institution code is 9001, there's the term, 2 is for fall, and 4 is for spring. Report year 2011, so that's fall 2011, and this is spring 2012. There's my institutions, and so forth. So if I scroll all the way to the end, you can see that all the way to the end of the file where I have data, these are my race, ethnicity for Hispanic, Native American, Asian, and so forth. Those all have data in it. And then my student identification number institution is blank, so I don't have data there. So if you want to see how this can be affected, if I go back to my file and I edit this, here I'll edit it in Notepad. So right here, rather than put the value of 2 for term, I'm going to put an A. And then in the next row I'm going to put B. So what I've done there, and you can see how it's kind of, these rows are not aligned anymore. I've added 2 new columns right there. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, close it, and come back to SURDS. I'm once again going to select my preview data file, and I'm going to select that same file, but this time I've made 2 modifications where in 2 different rows I inserted a comma and a new value. So in interpretation, I created a new column. So I'm going to click open, and we'll click upload and just see what happens. Okay, you see it comes back pretty quickly, but now it looks like things are a little out of sorts. So record type is still good, institution code is still good, and now for term, instead of having the fall term, I now see term A and term B, and now instead of the year being 2011 as it was previously, it now slid the term value over. So now it shows the report year is 2, and now it shows my student number is 2011. So by viewing this, you can see that now gender is the student ID number. So it's shifted everything to the right 1 column. So now if I scroll over to the end, I can see that all my race ethnicity values, for these 2 particular rows, it slid what was the race ethnicity white column, it slid it over 1 to now that is being populated in the student identification number for the institution. And we can see that that's not correct. So this is an example of if you had created your file through some export process, wherever your data is, if it's in a SQL Server, or Oracle database, or SAS, or Infinite Campus, or Banner, whatever system you have, even if it's a proprietary system, when you generate these text files out of that database, this is a way to test to see if the file generation process that you are using is creating the file correctly and putting things in the right order. So do a quick preview. It'll preview the first 5 rows. Actually, I think it has 10 rows. So if you have a file and has 10,000 rows on it, it's only going to show you the first 5 or 10. Again, I think it's 10. And so it's not going to waste time processing a file that may be incorrect. So do the preview, check it out, and make sure that everything is good before you try to submit. I'm going to go back into my file here and just delete those invalid columns. Save that and come back. So now I've gone to that file and I've edited that text file. This is an important place to note. I don't recommend changing the file as you saw there, changing the text file or the comma file directly, because if you're doing that to make real changes, you're changing a term or changing a zip code or changing a student ID, what that's going to do is it'll correct the file and it'll allow us to move forward in our SURDS submission, but it's going to not correct the data that exists in your student database. So then the department will have different data than you would have at your institution. So always, whenever possible, I would say always, make the changes within your database. So you correct the data and make adjustments to either the data in your student database or make adjustments to the process that creates your text file. So then you can just regenerate the text file or the comma delimited file and make the changes that way. So that way we try to keep in sync your source, the database code on your end, and the file that's given to us. So while I'm doing this for demonstration purposes, modifying the text file directly, I wouldn't recommend making those changes within the text file. Let's try to keep the data the same in your system as it is when you give it to us. All right, so now that I've made those changes and I've taken those terms back out, we'll do a quick preview again just to make sure that I corrected it. All right, so everything looks good. Everything's back in line. Date of birth's back where it was. Student numbers back where it was. All right, so once I feel good about the layout, I'm going to check Submit and Validate File. And do the same process. Select the file. It shows my file selection there. And now that I've done Submit and Validate, the process could take a little longer because now it's going to copy the file, it's going to import the data, it's going to validate the file for errors, meaning checking row by row and field by field everything that exists in the file, and then if it's necessary, then generate the reports. So you can see here, it just took a few moments because I have a very small file, only 5 rows on that file. It comes to a confirmation. So again, similar page where it has my user and the number of files in progress. It summarizes your institution, the file type and year and so forth. But it summarizes what happened during the submission. So it confirms that you submitted 5 rows on the file and 5 errors were generated and 0 warnings. So at this point, you know it was a fairly successful submission. You only had 1 error per row. And you have a few options down here. 1, you can view the file errors. 2, you can go back to viewing all your file submissions, and you can submit another file. So we're going to have another video on the details of the file errors, but let's go check what the file errors look like, just to give you a preview. So on the file, you can see here that there are 5 errors, and the errors were in relation to a program code, program sequence, or degree level combination invalid. So in kind of normal language, the program is the zip code, the sequence is a specific detail of the zip code, and then degree level is basically the type of degree. So it's essentially telling us that we have a problem with our zip code. We'll have another video for the details of errors, so we'll come back to that. But for now, we're going to go back to the current files, which takes us back to all of our file submissions for this institution. And if you recall, when we first started, we didn't have any submissions. Well, now, under degrees granted, we have a submission for FY 2012. And you see we have 5 records on the submitted file. We have 5 errors. We have 0 warnings. And we have a date submitted. So, if you want to view all your file submissions, you can click this link here, and this will give you the details of all of your submissions. So if I've submitted this file 10, 15, 50 times, you'll see all of these listed with the information on when it was submitted and what the status of that submission is. To view the reports, you click on the number of records, and for the errors, you click on the number of errors. So again, we're back there. So hopefully at this point, you have a general sense of how to submit the file, how to properly use the preview and the file submission status to the best of your benefit. And you can kind of manage how to submit new files or make changes. So look forward to the next video where we'll discuss how to make modifications and corrections or identify what the errors or what are causing the errors, and then we will also summarize the report. So at this point, that's how to submit a file, and thank you for watching.